welcome to the deep dive. So today we're doing something a bit different. We're focusing in on just one day, Tuesday, May 6, 2025.
Right.
And we're pulling out some key stories from across the global TV, film, and media scene.
Yeah, it's amazing what can happen in just 24 hours. You see these little snippets, but we want to connect the dots.
Exactly. I mean, the sheer range is something else. You've got streaming strategies, talent deals heating up, big moves in international markets.
And even Hollywood potentially getting tangled up in trade disputes. It's a lot.
It really is. So our job today really is to sift through all that, cut through the noise, and give you the insights that actually matter.
Make sense of the whirlwind. We've got that snapshot from the day's news, and, the mission is to show you how these different pieces fit together. What's the bigger story here?
Okay, let's jump right in. There's already buzz about a sequel. Another Simple Favor returns.
Yes.
Settings Capri looks gorgeous. Blake Lively, Anna Kendrick, Henry Golding, they're all back.
Sounds like a recipe for success, bringing back the core team.
But the plot sounds, well, wild. A murderous triplet shows up at a wedding. Mob stuff involved.
Okay, so they're really leaning into the melodrama and the intrigue.
Totally. And what really caught my eye was how they explicitly mentioned the film as embracing its queer fan base and going for even bolder storytelling.
That feels very deliberate. It's not just, hey, here's the sequel. It's targeting.
Right. A specific strategy.
It is. And what's interesting isn't just, bringing back a popular film, but how they're doing it. They clearly know who responded to the first one. And now they're doubling down, amplifying those elements. I mean, in this crowded market, you've got to stand out, right?
Definitely.
So leaning into that dedicated audience, promising more twists, it's probably a smart play to build on that initial buzz. Makes you think about how studios are finding and really cultivating those niche fan bases now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, shifting gears quite a bit, but this feels just as important. There's this story about an indie filmmaker.
Oh, I saw this one.
Who basically opened up their books about the money side of their film, which ended up on Netflix, shared the real numbers.
Which almost never happens, especially, after getting that kind of global reach, critical acclaim.
Exactly. It feels like a little crack appearing in that wall of silence around pay in the creative world.
It really does. And this filmmaker, by sharing actual figures, isn't just talking about their own experience. It kind of taps into this wider feeling, this push for more transparency everywhere.
Right. You hear murmurs about it.
Yeah. And it shines a light on that potential gap between artistic success, getting your film seen, and the actual financial return for the creators, especially with streaming. By starting this conversation, putting numbers out there, they could genuinely influence how other filmmakers, the industry, think about what's fair compensation. It's about the business behind the art.
Definitely a vital conversation. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic over to the UK. Seems like the broadcasting scene there is facing some, pretty big hurdles.
Yeah, things seem a bit shaky.
Channel 4's CEO, Alex Mahon, is leaving. There's interim leadership. And then you've got merger talks swirling around ITV and a rival backed by Abu Dhabi.
Right. Consolidation is often a sign of pressure.
And on top of that, Channel 4 already had job cuts because the ad market slumped. It just paints a picture of real uncertainty over there.
It does. And, the UK situation really mirrors what traditional broadcasters are dealing with globally. Ad revenue is down, or at least less reliable. And the competition from the big international streamers with deep pockets is just relentless.
It's a huge strain on budgets.
Exactly. And that, as we're seeing with Channel 4, trickles down and affects the independent production sector, which relies heavily on commissions from these channels.
So the potential ITV merger talks, that's about finding scale, new money.
Probably both. Looking for ways to stay competitive, find efficiencies, maybe new financial backing. It's a tough environment.
And speaking of global pressures, but a totally different kind. Who saw this coming? Hollywood might get caught up in a potential trade war.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise development.
Apparently, Donald Trump's plans for the next wave of trade penalties could include the film industry.
Which is interesting because films were initially left out, right? Classified as services, not goods.
Exactly. So this could potentially hit a really profitable U.S. export sector pretty hard.
It's significant because it suggests a shift in how governments might view the economic role of film. Being excluded before suggested, a recognition of its unique status.
Right. Cultural export, soft power.
All of that. But bringing it into the tariff discussion, that signals a possible reassessment. It could have serious financial ripple effects for U.S. studios distributing overseas. Might even change, how and where films get funded and made down the line.
It's fascinating, too, that while the Channel 4 CEO exit gets headlines, maybe the quieter search for the BBC's new chief content officer is actually even more critical for the UK scene.
That's a really good point because that role, reporting to Tim Davie, it's about so much more than just greenlighting shows. They're facing this huge challenge, basically trying to rebuild the BBC's creative ecosystem amidst budget cuts, shifting ad models, digital competition. It's incredibly complex.
This is less about picking the next hit drama, more about fundamental strategy.
Precisely. The BBC, like, other public service broadcasters, is wrestling with staying relevant and financially viable in this digital era. The new CCO needs to be more than just a programming whiz.
Needs a real vision.
Absolutely. A strategic vision for how the BBC can keep making impactful stuff, support the wider UK creative industry, and compete with the Netflixes and Amazons of the world, all with tighter budgets. It's a massive, pivotal job for British broadcasting's future.
Okay, let's pivot again. Look at the international market dynamics. I saw some insights from Izzet Pinto, the CEO of Global Agency, speaking at Paris Unscripted.
Right, about Turkish dramas.
Yeah, he's saying they're still totally dominant. Like 98% of their sales are these ready-made dramas.
And a big part of that is the sheer volume, right? The long episode counts.
Exactly, he mentioned that. Said scripted formats have had some success, but the ready-mades rule. And he's looking at the Middle East as the next big growth area. What makes that model work so well?
Well, it's likely a mix of things. Those long episode runs really cater to certain viewing habits in different regions. Plus, it gives broadcasters a ton of content to fill schedules reliably.
Value for money, sort of.
Kind of, and the dramas themselves often strike a cultural chord in various international markets. Plus, the ready-made part just makes distribution simpler. No need for local adaptation, just dubbing or subtitles.
Makes sense. And Pinto targeting the Middle East suggests he sees growing demand there.
Yeah, it shows a strategic focus, understanding those regional tastes and seeing an opportunity as the demand for international content grows everywhere.
Also at Paris Unscripted, though, Nadav Palti from Dory Media offered a slightly different angle. He was talking about Israel's hustle-driven creative culture.
Right, contrasting models almost.
Yeah. He pointed to shows like Betapol, In Treatment, that went global, and their early wins with telenovelas down in Argentina. He put it down to relentless effort and adaptability.
It's a fascinating comparison. Bori Media's focus on hustle and being adaptable suggests a different route to global success. It's more about strong, core formats that can be localized.
Rather than just selling the finished product.
Exactly. They seem to prioritize ideas that resonate universally but can be tweaked for different cultures. Their early move into Argentina, the success of Betapol, it shows they're willing to take risks, tailor things, not just rely on volume like the Turkish model.
Yeah.
More agile, maybe.
Interesting. Okay, here's a little behind-the-scenes story I found quite telling. Young Mazzino joining The Last of Us for Season 2.
Oh yeah, playing Jesse.
Right. So he started prepping by playing the video game. Makes sense, right?
You'd think so. Get the feel for the character.
But the creators, Mazzino and Druckmann, actually told him they'd prefer he didn't.
Oh, really? Why?
Their reason was basically they didn't want the actors just copying the original game performances, which they call brilliant. They wanted fresh interpretations.
Huh. That's a really delicate balance, isn't it? Honoring the source material versus allowing creative freedom.
Totally.
It highlights that tension. The creators clearly believe that just, mimicking what worked in the game, even if it was great, might not bring anything new or surprising to the TV show.
Yeah. Adaptation is reinterpretation, not just transcription.
Exactly. It's a good reminder of that.
Looking ahead now, SAG-AFTRA is already prepping for the 2026 contract talks.
Seems early, but probably necessary.
And AI is apparently going to be front and center again. Duncan Crabtree Ireland, their chief negotiator, said the goal is to build on that recent commercial contract.
The one that put some restrictions on using members' work for training AI models.
That's the one. So this feels like it's going to be an ongoing major battleground.
Oh, absolutely. AI's impact, especially around performers' likenesses, their voices, their performances, that's not going away.
Oh, shit.
And SAG-AFTRA being proactive, saying they want to build on the last deal, it signals they're really dug in on protecting members' rights as this tech evolves so fast. Those 2026 talks, they're going to be critical for the future of creative work. Big implications.
Definitely one to watch. Okay, on a much lighter note, Taskmaster.
Ah, Taskmaster. Love it.
Renewed for 6 more seasons. Plus, a junior spinoff is coming.
6 seasons. Wow. And Junior Taskmaster. That could be hilarious.
Right. And season 19 is back on Channel 4 soon with a new cast: Fatiha El Ghori, Jason Mantzoukas, Matthew Baton,
Mantzoukas. Oh, that's brilliant casting.
Rosie Ramsey, Stevie Martin too. It's just amazing how this fairly simple idea from Alex Mahon just keeps going global. Huge on YouTube too.
Over 1.7 million subscribers, I saw.
What is it about it? Why does it endure?
I think, well, the format is just so adaptable, isn't it? Lets all these different comedic styles shine, and it's just fundamentally silly, pure, unadulterated fun.
True. Doesn't take itself too seriously.
Not at all. And its success internationally, online, it just shows how a really well-done, funny concept can cross borders and find audiences everywhere, especially online. The renewals, the spin-off, it's clear proof it's still massively popular.
Yeah, good for them. Okay, just touching briefly on the international flow of things. We saw Korean producers were at the LA screenings showcasing their stuff.
Right, K-content still very much in demand.
And the screenings themselves are apparently becoming more streamlined but strategic.
Yeah.
And there's the TV Beats co-financing market opening up for drama series submissions.
It all just points to how interconnected everything is now, doesn't it?
Totally.
These developments, Korean creators active in LA, established markets like the screenings adapting, new co-financing initiatives popping up, they all highlight that global collaborative reality. Projects increasingly involve partners and audiences from all over.
And just to give a little flavor of what's actually being made, a divorced Sista spinoff is happening.
Okay.
Like Bay of Fires is coming back for season 2, and this one sounds cool. Reykjavik Fusion, an Icelandic crime thriller set in the food world, starring Olafur Darri Olafsson.
Oh, interesting mix. Food and crime.
Right? And on the film side, some big names. Spike Lee adapting Kurosawa with Highest to Lowest, Denzel Washington, and A.T. Rocky starring.
Wow. Okay. That's ambitious.
David O. Russell doing a pool hustler movie, Shutout, with De Niro and Jenna Ortega.
De Niro and Ortega, interesting pairing.
And Zach Woods is directing Susan Sarandon and Aubrey Plaza in a magical realist drama called The Accompanist. So quite the mix.
It really is that variety, different genres, platforms, international roots, big stars, indie vibes. It reflects how dynamic things are. Established names, fresh ideas, global collaborations. It shows the industry is constantly trying to hit different audience tastes and find new creative angles.
And behind the camera, lots of executive moves too. Jenny Daly is now president at Smith & Co. Productions. John Campisi joined Untitled as a partner. Pamela Goldman's the new head of Gersh Voice. Danny Feldheim is EVP Television at The Walsh Company.
Yeah, the usual Hollywood shuffle.
It feels like a constant reshuffling of the deck.
It often signals shifts, though. New priorities for companies, agencies realigning. Seeing who moves where can give you clues about changing power dynamics or what kinds of projects might get a push. It's worth tracking.
And speaking of adapting, Aaron Underhill, the president of Universal Television, announced they're beta testing a new kind of talent deal structure.
Oh, yeah, for writers.
Yeah, specifically aimed at attracting top writers in this, shifting development landscape. She even mentioned doing a listening tour with writers' reps.
That's smart. It shows the studios know the old ways might not be enough anymore.
Right, with all the new platforms and writers having more options, maybe.
Exactly. So being willing to experiment with deals, actively talking to reps, it suggests they recognize the need for more flexibility, maybe more collaboration, to keep top talent happy.
And one last quick point. Filmmaker Justin Simien talking very candidly about the price of truth in Hollywood.
I read that. About navigating egos and feedback.
Yeah, just a reminder that it's not all smooth sailing in a creative industry. There are tricky interpersonal dynamics involved.
Absolutely. Simeon's honesty there is valuable. It reminds you that making films, making TV, it involves managing personalities, giving and getting tough feedback. All that human stuff behind the scenes. It's not just about the script and the camera.
Definitely not. Okay, and to wrap up our deep dive for today, Marvel Studios.
The big one.
Announcing they're scaling back TV production,
Great.
refocusing on film. Kevin Feige himself admitted their output might have gotten, overwhelming, led to fan fatigue.
That's a pretty big admission from Feige.
It is. He said it diluted audience engagement. So the new goal is more focused storytelling. This feels like a major recalibration.
It really is. For, arguably the biggest force in entertainment over the last decade plus. Deciding to pull back on TV, prioritize film quality and impact, it acknowledges that maybe they hit a saturation point.
Trying to preserve the brand's specialness.
Could be. It might have wider ripples, too. for streaming in general, and how other big franchises think about expanding across different platforms, quality over quantity, maybe making a comeback.
We'll see. So, wrapping this all up then, looking at just one day, May 6th, it's so clear how much is shifting constantly in global TV, film, media.
Absolutely. All these stories we talked about, the sequels, the pay transparency push, the UK turmoil, trade threats, AI, new deals, Marvel's pivot, they seem separate, but they're all threads in this bigger, evolving tapestry.
Yeah, connected.
Yeah. And considering things like Marvel pulling back, the rise of global content we discussed, what do you think? What's going to be the biggest surprise, the biggest shift we see in the media world by this time next year?
Ooh, good question. Definitely gives you something to chew on.
It does. Lots to think about.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.
My pleasure.